Besides Malachi Corley, this guy and Malachi Corley were the two nicest players that I got to talk to at the Senior Bowl. Bar none, those were the two coolest that I got to interview. So I'm going to go Spencer Rattler at the 301 for the same reasons we went Bo Nix and Michael Penix. I don't know. I think the community doesn't like Spencer Rattler a lot. There's a lot more NFL people talking him up versus in the Dynasty community that's just, there's no chance for him. But I think he represents very similar bets to Penix, Nix, and Rattler. But if you had to guess the likability of the three, Rattler would be at the bottom, which makes me pick him third, assuming their draft capital potential start in year one is similar bet. I'd probably pick him third out of the three. But Rattler at 301, back-to-back with Corley. 302, Shane, you were up.
First, I'm a little salty. I should have just taken Spencer Rattler at 212 and called it a day. That'd be the smarter move than a wide receiver, but whatever. I'm just going to go ADP. I'm going to follow Destination Devi's ADP. We've got a lot of drafters, a lot of people smarter than me, or at least more savvy from the Devy perspective. Jalen Polk, wide receiver.
Yeah, Polk is probably one that flew a little bit under the radar just because Odunze and McMillan were the Devy hype players from Washington. And, he really wasn't on a lot of people's radar unless you actually followed college football a little bit. So even for me, I didn't know a ton about him until the beginning of the season. And then when McMillan wasn't there, it was like, who is this guy? I think he's a pick that people don't really know what to do with. Even in some of these best ball drafts, like really doesn't even get picked until the last couple rounds. And then you look at some of the guys there and you're like, that doesn't make sense with where he's being mocked. I mean, pretty much everywhere I see him, he's a top 50, top 60 pick. Mm-hmm. So typically it's not a bad bet here because there are players in that range that are going to be able to fire and be worth close to a first or be seen as like a threshold receiver. So I like the pick at 302. Oh man, I think this is where you have to really kind of have a process because the quarterbacks are gone. No more quarterbacks I'm going to draft. I think the rest of the quarterbacks are guys I'll pick up off waivers or I would take in the fourth, but we're not doing a fourth round. No way an exercise with Shane would end up with a fourth round. There's just no way I could convince Shane to do a fourth round. Might be fun because you would just scoff at every single pick, but
I'd hate every pick that I made.
We like doing more battle for waivers. Some of the players that get some buzz are on waivers, so we usually only go three. This guy I think's getting a little buzz, Shane. I'm going to go back to the running back board because I think there's probably 8 receivers that I still like, but I'm kind of just guessing as to which ones go in what spots because I don't think there's probably any locked in first 2 round rookie picks in the NFL draft left. So I'm going to go Jalen Wright. He's getting a lot of hype as a running back people don't know a lot about because he wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He was injured. So there's some things kind of going against him, but there's been a lot of buzz of people going, he's the undervalued running back until he's not. But I think we've drafted him in this draft as RB5, and I don't think that's crazy. So I'll go Jalen Wright at 303. Did I snipe you? Was that guy on your radar?
He was. I didn't think you'd be taking him yet, but again, under the thought process of we're only going 3 rounds because we play in leagues where we're getting rid of the 4th round so that the waivers are awesome and they don't suck. That's our goal for next year. That's my new thing. I'm just going to go back to running back and go with Estime, Notre Dame running back. For some reason, for the life of me, I can't remember what running back we all fell in love with out of Notre Dame, not Kyra Williams. A few years before that never hit. He was just injured all the time. But anyway, different type of player. But yeah, I'm going to go Estime, and you're going to see probably with a lot of my picks here, it's just a lot of running backs.
Well, I can't believe you forgot Mr. CJ Prosise.
There you go. That's my dude.
Couldn't be more opposite styles, although CJ Prosise is a guy that he had everything. He was big. He was fast. He was like Antonio Gibson before Antonio Gibson. And it just never worked out. Injuries zapped him. So good throwback pick with Estime because he probably belongs back 20 years ago from the way that he runs. So 305. I'm just going to start hitting receivers that I think have a chance to pop. People do not like this player at all, meaning like at all, but I'm going to go with, well, you know what? I'll pivot. I'll go Xavier Legette because I think he has a better chance of getting higher draft capital than the next receiver that I was going to take. So I think he's the next one off the board. If there was one that's still remaining that can go in the first 2 rounds, I think it would be him, although he thinks, I'm guessing he's probably more of a round 3 pick, but I'll go Xavier Legette at 305 is the pick we are at. You were up 306.
Yeah, I think I know the wide receiver you're talking about, and I don't want to pick him. So if you'd like to pick him, he's going to be on the board next because I'm going to go Ray Davis. I believe Ray got a chance to talk to him at the Senior Bowl, or was it you? I forget. He's a little guy, though.
He's my height. He's at 5'8" on a good day, and he's but he's got about 50 pounds.
Yeah.
He's big.
Solid. And you know what? He's got a good story. So that means if he does well in the preseason, We love good stories. We love players like that had to go through shit. You know what I mean? That it's a happy ending. Well, hopefully my happy ending is drafting Ray Davis and flipping him for a future second at some point. So I'll go Ray Davis.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that if you look at JB's analytic grades, which he's put out occasionally on articles that he's released during the season, Ray Davis was somebody that always popped at the very, very top, like the very top of the model, at the very, very top throughout the entire season. So I think he's getting, and let me ask you this, because there's a lot of slander on guys like Ray Davis because he's old. Do you care about that at running back, Shane? Do you care if he's 20 or 24?
As long as he's not 34, we're fine. You know, if he was 27, we'd have a problem because he's past the age apex. It's a 1-year bet, especially at this part of the draft. I'm not expecting really anything out of third round pick. Again, if they can get a little bit of a flash, if I can get some spot starts, if I can't move him for a future second, I'm fine with that. So I don't care if he's 25 years old, as long as he's not 35 years old, 27 years old, we're good.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to process. I mean, we've taken mostly running backs in the last couple rounds. We've eaten up probably 8 of them at this point. I'm going to go back again and take Marshawn Lloyd at 307. I think he kind of represents the same thing that we've taken with Jalen Wright, Estime, Ray Davis. It's just you're drafting bodies. Now, again, this is a mock, so we're kind of going process here because we're taking running back. We probably don't feel comfortable drafting some of the receivers unless it's a receiver where you go, everyone will love that receiver if they land in a good spot. And I don't think that really exists right now because I think there's some that are going to fall. But there's no way that this many running backs probably go in a typical draft. I think there's going to be other players. There's going to be some other receivers, people chasing the next Puka, the next Tank Dell. They're going to reach into their third round of receivers before they start going into round 5, round 6 at running back, where some of these guys are probably going to be. So this is a mock exercise, and I think we're kind of both drafting out of like roster construction principles a little bit versus just drafting any receiver. But I think receivers are going to be more valued by the community.
Probably. These type of receivers are more
good receivers are valued by the community.
The community also covets bad receivers more than they should, but that's a whole
That's true.
discussion.
Bad receivers with names or situations that they like, even if everything about them says otherwise. So you are up. Are you taking a receiver?
Yeah. Actually going to go a receiver. No, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to go another running back. And you know what? I don't care. I would actually pick this guy if he was on the board. I'm taking the second coming of CMC. Oh, wait. No, that's not what he is. He's not that at all. He just happens to be another white running back. Will Shipley. I think he's going to end up on a team somewhere with a role. And again, if I can flip him later, great. If I can get some spot starts out of him, I think that'd be useful at this point of the draft. I'm happy getting that. 309. I'm
going to go back to the receiver. Well, I think this is the one that you said you don't want. I'll take Devontae Walker. I still think he has a chance to get better capital than people are projecting. Most people are now pushing him down into round 3 or round 4 because his Senior Bowl was bad and just not a lot of positivity about him over the last couple weeks, but that could all change. He could get second round capital and he could end up being the next Tyquan Thornton. And you're just like, why did he get drafted so high? It's maybe because of one specific thing, and maybe one team had him way higher than somebody else did. But I'm going to take him here, 309. He shouldn't fall any further than this. So I'll go Devontae Walker simply for draft capital, but that could obviously change. There's about 6 other receivers that I'm interested in, and we'll see where you go at 310. I have 1 pick left. You have 2. So what are you doing?
This guy's supposed to be fast. That's the only reason I'm taking him, because literally at this point of the draft, I'm just looking for any kind of special skill. Jalen McMillan, only because he's fast. And guess what? His ADP's right around here too. Going with the same, I'm going to keep beating it in people's head. If he does something in the preseason and someone wants to give me something better for him, they can have him.
So I think that's one where people are just not talking about him because he hasn't been on the radar, but he could easily be interchangeable with Xavier Legette or Jalen Polk or Malachi Corley, and it wouldn't shock me. So with my last pick, I'm going to go, there's 2 players I would potentially select, not Johnny Wilson or not Jermaine Burton, even though they would be in the mix of the next top 5 receivers. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to be one that the NFL is going to like more than probably we do, because he played in just awful passing offenses for Florida, but he was the best option on Florida for the last couple years. So whatever that means, he was at least the best option for a Power 5 team. And I do think he is a niche receiver. He goes to the right spot. He's the Cincinnati round 3 pick. People immediately go, that's Tyler Boyd. Whether that's worth anything, that's a different story. But I think he he's one that will be target drafted by a team that needs a slot receiver. So I think there's going to be, okay, that's a good spot, and his capital is going to be high enough with people may buy into him. So I'll go Ricky Pearsall with my last pick. Mr. Irrelevant of the Manic and Chill mock draft. Shane, what are you doing?
So, it's funny. So it's a 2QB, 2-point tight end premium league. So I said, let me just go look at the ADP. Is there any other quarterbacks that I even want to draft? Period.
Nope.
No. I looked at the tight ends and said, is there any other tight ends I want to draft? Maybe in the 4th round.
What about Joe Milton, Shane? He could play tight end and quarterback maybe and not be good at either one.
So he could be like Logan Thomas then, except that Logan Thomas actually had a productive season. Oh, man. I don't like anything that's available here. I don't want any of it, but we just talked about him. I am going to go Jermaine Burton with the hope that he goes in the 3rd round and I can trick someone into thinking that he's going to be hopefully not the Carolina Panthers. They've already went through this with someone, but maybe the Carolina Panthers wide receiver 1. I can sell them on that nonsense.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I think there's probably other receivers I considered. I think a lot of mock drafts would have Javon Baker going in here. Javon Baker, a guy that played at a Power 5 school early on, had to transfer, actually was a Kentucky Wildcat for 4 months. I don't know if you knew that. Mm-hmm. And then somehow just had a falling out with the coaches and then left and never played there. Then went to Central Florida and played multiple years. So he kind of disappeared. I remember being excited about Javon Baker when he was going to go to Kentucky. I thought he could be a guy that's in the next draft class. Then 2 years later, he shows up here. So that was one. Like there's probably 4, 5, 6 more receivers that you could consider. Any players that stood out to you that didn't get drafted that if you had like 4th round options, or that you'd be sitting here going, I'm blowing no more rookie picks, Shane. Any players left that you would blow 50% of your FAAB on? Any running backs with a name or anything you see?
Let me just look through the ADP. Absolutely not.
Dylan Johnson? Ray's been talking him up a little bit. No?
Well, then fine. Then him. Ray's talking him up. You know why?
Ray talks somebody up. There might be a buyer, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. If Ray's talking them up, I know enough about my community and the circles I run in that one, the players probably got a little bit of ability, right? Also, there's going to be a bunch of people that all of a sudden like them. Never heard of them, but Ray likes them, so they will like him. So guess what? Yes, I get in and blow my 50% of my FAAB and trade him for 2 future 3rds.
Would you bet on Jerry Rice's kid or Frank Gore's kid? Just tapping into their father's ability and drafting based on that.
It's Bloodlines, right? Bloodlines, isn't that how it works? If your father is a Hall of Famer, automatically you are great at sports. Except, well, no, that's not true. It would not be Frank Gore Jr. because he is already 75 years old because his father is 160. I would think I might take a shot on Rice. He's got a name that I think in the NFL will get him more opportunities and more chances than he probably deserves on his own through his own merit. That last name being Rice will get him a little bit of leeway that some other, if his name was Jones, he wouldn't.
Yeah, there's probably another 15 players that you could justify a rookie pick on, but that's the beauty of this class, especially if you're playing in a lineup league. There's a bunch of running backs we didn't even mention. They're going to be any running back on a 53, and if you're only in a 3-round rookie draft, you can almost bet on, hey, I don't necessarily need to make round 2 and round 3 running back picks. Because there's going to be some that just slip through the cracks. And there's going to be 1 or 2 where you're going to go, that was a steal. He gave me a half-ass usable season, and I got him off waivers. Whereas receiver, it's a lot harder to do that. And I do think we've talked through kind of a lot of the receiver outcomes. The tough part about these receivers is there's so many of them. But I think one thing that I'm pretty confident in, there's going to be at least a dozen receivers that get decent draft capital. Top 75 or better picks. Those are better bets historically than waiting until day 3 to take receivers. So then it's just which ones can I sell? Which ones are good offenses where they're going to maybe play right away? I mean, that's why Tank Dell and Puka Nacua got to where they got. Sure, they were good players, right? But they went to places where teams were like, we're going to put them on the field right away. Puka Nacua goes to Cincinnati or Philly. Does he even play right away? You know what I mean? Like, and it's not that those teams didn't like him. The Rams obviously got him, but like, what if one of those teams would have taken him in the 4th? Do you know what I mean?
Puka would be, he might have made the All-Pro or Pro Bowl, but it would have been as a gunner on the special teams because he would have seen maybe 15 targets on those 2 teams, and it doesn't change his ability. Just like you said, the Rams just happen to be the perfect circumstance for him. Yeah,
and that's something that I think I have to do a better job at looking at with day 3 receivers or even receivers that go in round 3 or beyond is taking that subset, understanding that they aren't good bets, but then also be willing to say, okay, is there opportunity from that point and beyond? The ones where you say, say there's no opportunity, not really what you want to invest in because it's going to be hard to flip a receiver. But if there is opportunity, then you have to zoom back into the profile and say, do I want to actually use a pick that would be suboptimal to draft a 5th round receiver or a 4th round receiver, or even a 3rd round receiver? But after that cutoff point where you're like, I'm not drafting pedigree anymore, I'm not drafting good draft capital, I think you really have to look at the situation more so than we might have in the past. So
just one caveat to that though, just make sure the opportunity is upcoming, not in 2026. I see people kind of, justify taking wide receivers in the 3rd, 4th round and going, well, so-and-so T. Higgins is going to leave and Tyler Boyd is going to leave. So in 2 years, this guy could get a shot. I guarantee he's not going to. Like, that's just not going to happen, because what'll happen is they'll draft another wide receiver before that dude, way before that dude, if T. Higgins were to leave the Bengals and Tyler Boyd. That was just my one caveat.
No, I think that's a perfect point. You do not, even if a guy gets 3rd round capital and he goes to one of those situations where you go, he's a 2025 play. I'm not interested in 2025 plays with rookie picks, especially if it's a 2nd round pick. Like, I can do something different if I don't make that pick. I mean, how are you feeling if you drafted Kendre Miller last year, Zach Charbonnet last year? They're still good players, right? They're going to have roles, but every year it feels like they're battling for their spot at around the 2nd round value every year. So why use a 2nd rounder? Basically, you're just betting that they're better than their situation. And neither of those guys got drafted in situations where you were like, clearly they're going to have a ton of opportunity. So it's hard to figure out the players right now because there's so little information that we have, but hopefully this helps you think more about the picks and what the range of outcomes and the decisions are going to be when you're on the clock. And I think there's some moves you can make with certain ranges where people assume they know what's going to be there. I think you can make some bets against that in lieu of either future value or more volume or more shots. So that's the way that I would lean. Go back and check out round 1 if you haven't watched it. I assume if you are watching this, you probably already checked out round 1. But thank you for supporting the channel, and Manic Chill is out.